There are so many different ways in which Good Friday invites us to reflect on what's been going on in the world, in the community, in our own lives and families. So many different images that we can use. It's hard to know what image we could use that could speak any more loudly than the one that Good Friday itself gives us. The image of Jesus on the cross, being mocked, being hung up, being killed. The image that the scripture tells us. So many different slants and places and people who are part of the story. Every gospel telling it in a slightly different way. And every year people like me, preachers, look for what it is that we've met, that we've thought about the power of the cross and what it means for us, what it means for the whole world. Earlier this year I was in a meeting of Anglicans from around the world in Ghana. I had never been to that part of the world before. On one of the days we were taken on an excursion to a slave castle on the Cape Coast. One of those places where for 200 years people who had been captured and herded from different parts of Africa were taken to the West Coast and then shipped into the so-called New World and made slaves there. Well, the castle itself is very horrifying, and the sense of how it is that hundreds and hundreds of people at a time might have been able just to stay alive in the conditions they were in were pretty awful. And there was a door that our guide told us about, which was the one out of which people left the final cell or dungeon that they'd been in, maybe for days, maybe for weeks, maybe even for months. They were herded out through that door and taken to the ships on which they would be sent across the ocean. And the door was known as the door of no return. And it's that concept, the door of no return, which has been playing for me again and again as I've been thinking about Jesus on the cross. It looked like a door of no return for him, for the people whose lives he'd touched, for the people who loved him, for his disciples and followers. It looked like absolutely the end of the story. That they would never hear again from him of God's love, of its power to transform, to change, to make things new. Good Friday is the story when that door of no return actually becomes the door of something else, of God's gift, completely and utterly given for every human being in every time and every place. However you are keeping Good Friday this year, and even if you are someone who feels that you're at a point of no return in some way, shape or form, the Good Friday story is for you. It is the story of God's love given completely. If you need to take some time to sit with that, to turn again into the love that reaches out from the cross, to allow that to pick up everything you think has no value and is never going to go anywhere good, if it's the hurt, if it's grief, if it's pain, if it's sin, this is the day for you. The cross of Jesus is the gift which gives everything. And God has given it for you, for me, for each one of us. Take some time today to sit with that.